This is the President McCormack Podcast with your host, Mark McCormack.
Ladies and gentlemen, today on the podcast, one of my bestest and greatest friends of all time, Daniel Child.
What's up, Mark?
Welcome to the podcast, Daniel.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Good.
Good.
Been chatting here about the benefits of our misguided youth. One of my friend Dan's favorite, or most, what'd you call it? Relatable quote you've ever said.
Yep. Yeah, that came up a couple of times. Came up once in the MTC as I was trying to get something out of a vending machine by reaching up around and pulling it out for a kid. And he's like, whoa, how'd you know that? And it's just the benefits of a misguided youth.
Yeah.
It's typically not a quote you utter in the MTC to people, but he was entertained. He got, whatever he was looking for. So
Yeah, his bag of Frito-Lay or whatever.
So
we have been friends since do you know what year or what grade in school?
We interacted a little bit. You've well hashed over the AM PMer thing, like I think on like every episode, someone you knew. I was AM and you were an outcast PM.
Yep. We basically took knives to school.
So we didn't get to interact all that much in elementary school. It would have been in junior high. I remember the first like clear time, obviously I remember us crossing paths that would have been in, I think 7th grade. Yeah. 7th grade. Because again, clear memory, right? You go back to things you remember. It was when I remember having the conversation. It was when you were thinking of breaking up with Mandy.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, and we were in gym together. We were in PE together.
All right.
And so you were talking, I think, to like Nate Clifton about it. It's like, oh, I want to be free for the summer, dude. And Nate Clifton's like, yeah, do it. And I like overheard this, and at this point, like I had the hots for Mandy.
Yeah.
Because I had like been on like a bike ride with her. Joe and I went over to see her one night and then went on a bike ride. And then I think we ended up ditching Joe. Sorry about that, Joe, if you're listening. And so then I was like, yeah, dude, do it. And so you broke up with her, and then I swooped in and got, seconds or thirds or whatever it was. So.
I do remember that. I remember you and Joe like trying to convince me to break up with her too. Or like lightly pushing me in that direction.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure.
I was like, yeah, you're right, guys.
Yeah, you're right. I do want to be free for some. Yeah. And all your 7th grade glory. Dude, I look at my kids now, like Maddie's in 7th grade.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's really how old I was.
Oh, yeah,
like,
dude.
The older you get, like the younger young kids seem. So.
You know what's funny about Mandy, too, is I always remember her as my girlfriend that wore the overalls with the belly shirt. With one side
with the
unattached.
one side hooked up.
And it was like, I remember walking home, we were like talking in a field about like, dude, I think it was like just the most romantic stuff we could come up with. Like we died for each other. And it's what I'm saying. It's probably not even true. It's just how I
probably
remember
not.
it.
But it's just how you recall it, right? It was so dramatic in your youth. Absolutely.
Just me and you, baby.
Oh yes, we'll make it to the end of time. I got a 15-year-old, so I'm experiencing this all over again.
Ah, very good.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, poetry.
Unfortunately, he's not into poetry. But unfortunately, he's probably like a little too much like his old man. So.
Oh. Yeah, because you're kind of you're a romantic.
I am, unfortunately.
You've always loved it.
Yeah.
So let's call some things to light real quick.
Okay.
What was your email in high school?
Oh, you suck. My very first email ever, it was xpoet, like the letter X, POET 96 at AOL.com.
Unknown
poet. Yes. And the 96 was that? Yeah. So that would have been the year that I signed up the account. So I was on AOL in 96. Yeah. I messed around on that before on Prodigy. I was always like the friend that like kind of did the computers. Yeah. Like I can remember one time we were over at the Larsons and I like was always monopolizing their computer. And I think Brent Larson was trying to do something for business. Like, honestly, God bless.
Go figure.
God bless Brent Larson. Yeah. If he ever listens to this, he knows how much I love him. But I was like in there monopolizing his computer, and he was probably already sick of me. I was eating all his food. I lived at his house, basically. And then he's trying to run a business, and I'm in there on his computer, surfing online. And I remember he went out to the garage and was like frustrated and went to leave and like picked up Richard or Joe's bike and wung it like halfway across the yard and then drove off. So I was the tech friend that kind of like had early access to that stuff. And so.
Oh yeah. We'd always go over to your house and burn CDs. I think it's the only place we ever did that, right?
Yeah.
I never did it on my computer. I don't remember doing it.
No, we did a ton of them. We always had them.
Okay, most famous burn CD.
I knew you were going to go there too. That was...
hold on. This is the title of the mixtape that we made.
This is the title. It was Sounds of Satan, music to get laid to.
Full of freaking PM Dawn.
It was like PM Dawn, I'd Die Without You, Lucky by 7 Mary 3 probably. I don't know. I shared that playlist. I brought that playlist back to life, but they won't let me share all the files because everything's weirdly DRM'd these days, and you just can't share a playlist.
Yeah, it's like who the hell knows.
I'll figure a way and make one day like a box set because it's that long of all the famous songs.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. What was the local bands like Deep Ocean?
Clover, Deep Ocean, Jerrytown.
Yeah.
I think
this was the greatest. Well, and here's the other thing, right? You remember the final song on there?
Which one? I can't remember what the final song was.
Oh, you're gonna laugh at this. Dracula by Rob Zombie. Remember?
That's right, because it's like
we did like the 20 tracks that were like 3 seconds long, and then
and then if you're making out after all this, it's probably time to get up and go do something else. Yeah. So we put it was the Drugula by
Rob Zombie.
By Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to break into song, Mark.
Oh, dude. We'll get there. I'm only drinking Propel this morning. Oh. It is 8 o'clock in the morning.
Get a couple of Red Bulls into you and we'll make this more interesting.
Maybe a Mountain Dew. So that was the greatest mixtape of all time.
That was.
Because it was
unfortunately,
the perfect
it met
one.
an untimely demise. Again, at the Larson's house. God bless Brent Larson. I love that.
So tell us what happened to it.
I think Brent Larson was downstairs and I think he was just going through Richard and Joe's room. And he went over and saw it like sitting by the CD player and looked at it, read the title and just picked it up and went snap. Because, in my adolescent brain, Brent Larson was like a giant. He's a big dude, right? But he was an absolute giant. I just remember him like picking up and going snap, throwing it on the ground.
And no words were said to him. We just let that fly. Yeah, he
was a really patient dude. I've thought about that a lot. You think of all the crap he put up with all of us. Because, it was funny. They reminded me of the time at the football banquet when I got up and introduced myself. And I'm like, my name's Daniel Child. And my parents I live with is Brent and Leslie Summers. But my real parents are Brent and Tina Larson. And Brent Larson was telling me about it. And he's like, and we were just like sitting there wanting to just hide because we were looking at him just like, sorry.
Yeah.
So I was in Tina's family picture she had in her classroom.
Yeah.
I lived over there, dude.
Oh yeah, I know. And it was, that was the awesome part about them.
Yeah.
They're
still that way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're still that way.
Oh, you can walk to their house right now, walk in, eat something, just be sitting there. He wouldn't even blink an eye.
No, he probably wouldn't. He probably wouldn't. He'd actually if the only reason he'd blink an eye is he'd probably be running over there to give you a hug and be like, how are you?
Yeah.
Every time I see him, he's like that.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I had like this initiative where I was trying to just write people that had been kind of like almost mentors to me throughout my life. So I just started sending letters to people, and I sent one to Brent Larson right before he had his heart attack and almost passed away. And to this day, every time I see him, he's always like, that letter you wrote me. It's one of those things that you're like, when you did it, you're like, oh, I'm so glad I did it. Because I also wrote it to one other person who was, after Rachel and I got married. I know you and Michelle came up just before you guys got married. We were living up in Alpine in Maryland in Joseph's detached garage. Mm-hmm. And it was Joseph Massey. I wrote a letter to him about it too. And then he got it literally, I think like a couple of weeks, maybe a week before he died. So it was funny because I wrote that one and he died, and then I wrote one to Brent Larson and then he almost died. And I think at that point I stopped writing them because I was like, I'm going to kill someone.
Sending bullets all over the place.
Yeah, this isn't going good for me. So anyhow, but yeah.
So what did Joseph Massey do for you? Why did you feel compelled to send him one?
Joseph Massey was just, he was a really solid guy. And I just remember we had just a lot of just conversations about truth, about lots of different things. And he was always, here he is, he's an older guy, he's old enough obviously to be my dad. And as Rachel and I lived there, he would just sit and he'd have conversations with me, and we talked about lots of different things. I remember at one point I was writing a paper for a religion class at BYU, and we had a big long conversation about this complex topic because Joseph was a super smart guy. And we sat there and talked about it, and he had this really cool viewpoint that to this day I get a kick out of. And actually I think about it, and it's become kind of a truth for me as well, because his whole point was with what he believed. He's like, if someone came out tomorrow, right, the head of everything, and, in his case, if the prophet of the church came out tomorrow and said, this is all false, it's all a lie, he's like, it wouldn't change anything for me. He's like, because how I live and what happens in it is what makes me happy, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, it doesn't matter what they say. It doesn't matter what anyone says. All that matters is what's going on inside me and inside my beliefs and my heart and my life. And he's like, and for me, it brings me happiness. So nothing else can shake that. And it's kind of been the same thing that I've always lived too, right? It's like, other things happen, everything can go wrong around it, little things can change, but if it's what makes me happy, I'm locked in. I'm good.
Yeah. No, it's an absolute perfect creed to live by, right?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, Joseph was cool that way. And then I spent a lot of time with him just whenever, because my parents had their cabin right next to his up in Fairview. So if I was up there helping them work on projects, occasionally Joseph would be working on a project. I'd go helped him a little bit with a big fireplace that he built in this cabin that he did up there.
Oh, you helped with that?
Yeah.
Was that on River Rock or something?
Yeah, he did a ton of River Rock work through his whole place, but he had this massive fireplace, and it was a big 2-story vaulted ceiling, and it went up and then bent over like kind of sideways. And so he did all this stuff. And then he worked in all these cool stone pieces to it. It was pretty amazing. He was a talented dude.
Yeah, I remember you showing me that.
Dude. So
what did he do for a career?
He worked for Malacrot. He was a drug rep.
Oh, okay.
So he worked for Malacrot for a bunch of years, Tyco. Not the fireplace and not the turbo hopper place that, was also the dream of my youth. But he worked for Malacrot and Tyco. He was a drug rep, and yeah, he was super good at it. He was good enough that they totally respected him, and they kept him around, and he was really an authority in the field, but he, built a life for himself that he was also had a ton of freedom in terms of how he worked. So
yeah, absolutely.
And then later on, he was always playing around with other things. He didn't have to work a ton. He worked hard when he did it, but he was later on, like he decided he wanted to snowboard, and then he became a snowboard instructor up at, I think, Brighton, if I recall, just because, why not? And then later on, he wanted to buy cars, and so he set up a car dealership license and started buying cars and just flopping through cars and playing around. So he was a good dude. I liked Joseph.
I've met him a few times. I think every time I met him, I was with you.
Yeah.
To be honest. So we went over to his cabin a few times back in, was it high school or was it post-mission?
No, it would have had to have been post-mission.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, because he had his little one. So he had his little one down from my parents for a while, and then he bought the one next to my parents later on. So
does your mom still have that?
Nope.
They sold it?
No, a victim of the recession. The 2007 recession, like right after Brent died, and spec homes were massive at the time. And so she had, done a bunch of work for builders, and then the builders had all these spec homes, and then they folded, the bank took it. And because she was a sub in it, and there's very little protections for subs when it comes down to it, when the bank took it, she didn't get a dime. So I think she lost well into the 6 figures in a very short period of time. And so had to keep cash floating through the business to keep it alive. So it was a victim, but it was good. Super, super rad memories. I wish I could have shared some of them with the kids later on. Zach was the only one that was around, and he was tiny before she sold it.
Yeah.
But it was some really good times.
So tell me about, because I like to talk about your mom and her business because it's super interesting. Tell me about your life growing up, like your family's, interesting, the dynamics of your family and kind of jump into that.
Yeah. So, my parents, my mom divorced, when I was pretty young. It was like 4 years old that, she got divorced. And then my mom is a freaking rock star. And so she wasn't going to be dependent on someone else when she got divorced. And so she proceeded to work like 3 jobs by herself. She stayed in the house and she watched, kept the 4 kids. And my dad kind of bailed and moved up to Jackson Hole and showed, unfortunately, at that point, what the importance was for us in his life. And so my mom, stuck it out and stayed there and raised us. And
so did your mom have full custody of you kind of like from the very beginning?
Yeah. There was no partial custody. I mean, my dad, like we could visit my dad or whatever, and he could have taken us on a weekend and stuff. But no, my mom had full custody. Yeah. But for us, like for her to get full custody of us, she gave up, I think, all the tax write-offs for us as well.
Oh, interesting.
So worked 3 jobs with no tax write-offs just to keep the kids. So like I said, mom's a freaking rock star.
Yeah.
So she worked those 3 jobs and then she got married to another dude that she knew from high school, Brent Summers. And he was a hillbilly, cowboy hat wearing, horse running, son of a gun.
Yeah.
Living out in Draper in the time, which, was like, may as well have been like the BFE.
Yeah. And
so they got married. He had 3 kids. They had 7 kids. We lived in Sandy where my mom had the house for a while. And then he wanted to keep the horses somewhere and they needed a bigger house for 7 kids. So at the time, the cheapest place that you could get horse property and fit 7 kids into a house, you went to Highland, Utah.
Yeah.
So it's always funny, we always joked around how every time, you told anyone growing up, oh, you're from Lone Peak or you're from Highlands. Like, oh, so your parents are rich. It's like,
no,
my parents moved out there because they had Jack. They wanted horses. And I remember we used to joke around when we moved there because, Sandy was such a budding metropolis at the time, but, in our brains. And I know Adam Ravelli said the same sort of thing, right? He was worried about moving from Orem.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we moved out, it was like the middle of nowhere. And we were like joking around. We were going to be riding a tractor to like school every day. So we moved out there and they kind of started doing their thing and they met Kimball Parker, who lived next to us at the time, who was leasing the house next to us. And Brent and Kimball kind of hit it off. And at the time, I think Brent was working random jobs. He was building barns. He was installing like fly control systems for barns. He was, maybe at that point, he may have also been doing demolition work. My mom was working for an oral surgeon in Salt Lake, and I think she may have still been working as well for an orthodontist. They were working, they were working hard. And Kimball introduced him to carpet and floor coverings and stuff like that and got him started that way. And so Brent literally started selling carpet like out of the trunk of his car. He'd go drive around to like job sites and they'd ask him, hey, do you have this? And his response was always, oh yeah, I can get that. Then he'd like drive back home and talk to Kimball. He's like, so what's this? I have no idea. I just sold it today. But So then he'd get samples and come back and sell it. And they, bootstrapped up a business and he worked out of his car for a little while that way. Then eventually they had a little location in Sandy that they opened up, a little tiny store, kind of close to like 93rd and like 7th East or so. So they had that. And then eventually they moved that down to AF and it was right there on, it was like 97 North, 100 East for a little bit, right there by where the Thrifty Seat gas station was.
Yeah.
So they were there and then they moved over to the house that they're in now, that old Victorian house right there on State Street. So
and they've been there for
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were there for a while because Tyler lived in that house with his buddies in high school for a little bit, like his senior year. And then it was like shortly after that they moved in. So that would have been like what, 19, they probably moved into the house around 90, 95, 96 or so.
Okay.
maybe 97. But yeah.
So did your mom work there from the very beginning?
Yeah, she worked there from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like Brent started it, but then early on, like when they finally said, yeah, this is what we're going to do. As soon as they opened up to the location, I know in Sandy, she was there.
Gotcha.
So she was running it. She was typically like in the showroom talking to people, customers that way. Brent would go out, do measures. He would go out on job sites and stuff like that, or go pick up carpet. A lot of my like youth growing up, they had carpet like stacked in our garage. That was the very first storage unit we had. And so, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and then, we worked for the business. All the kids worked for the business at some point. I actually was thinking by the time I got around, I kind of had a little bit more freedom, because I remember you were always working for ADP. Like that was, did you ever have another job? I don't ever recall you.
I worked for Brent Larson for 2 days and realized I'm not a roofer.
See, I worked for ADP for like 1 day, right? And I was like, yeah, this isn't going to work. That was after I got back off my mission, though. Yeah. But yeah, like, so I worked there, but I worked other fun jobs as well. I worked at the pizza station.
Yeah.
I worked at, what else? I worked for a guy in AF building computers.
What you doing? Didn't you do the call center for a minute?
Western Watts. Yeah, I worked there.
Watts, yeah.
Yeah, that's another fun, epic story. Working there with their Insight Singer. That was hilarious. Yeah. That's where I learned, like, if you get phone surveys, if you talk to people in an accent that's similar to theirs, they'll actually more likely respond to you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then later on, before I left on my mission, I worked at Cento, which was another call center that was like gateway technical support.
Yeah.
What else? I did framing. I did lots of different stuff in high school.
Did you ever work on the roof much?
I did framing. I never did roofing. I actually never worked for Brent. I never worked for Brent Larson in all the years. I feel like all of our friends at some point rotated through. I live really close, right, to like Dave Barr, and Dave Barr talks about, still to this day talks about working for Brent, because I think he worked for him for a fair amount of time too.
Yeah, I think in college is where a lot of the dudes really started working for Brent, especially because of a lot of their summer work. For our viewers out there, listeners, it's commercial roofing.
Yeah.
So it is fiberglass and rubber.
Rubber EPDM, yeah.
Yeah.
So he does that. He lays down the foam and then all that stuff. Rich and Joe are listening to this and they're like, no, that's not how it's happening.
Yeah, I know. Well, when they
I'm not going to slaughter. If they show up on here, they can correct it.
I was going to say, one of them will be on here soon enough, hopefully.
One of them will be on here soon enough.
You never know. They work all the time, man. They're freaking artist workers we know, really.
Oh, yeah.
So my first day working for Brent, I got work off from my dad, right? I go, hey, I want to go try this, My dad was like, knock yourself out, I'm sure he was like, that's going to suck. And so...
was this in summer? Was this in spring? When was this? Because that's going to determine how bad this sucked.
Yeah, I think it was in the fall because the heat wasn't ridiculous, which it can be.
So it was a tolerable time of year.
Yeah, but we walk in the middle of this warehouse, and I mean, we're talking like probably a 30 foot to the bottom of the roof, from the concrete.
Yep.
And there's just a ladder, an extension ladder, just like up to a hole. And I'm like, I'm not deathly afraid of heights, but I'm uncomfortable with heights. And so, so BJ just walks up the thing, right?
Yeah, probably not holding onto the sides. Yeah.
Walks up and holding all of his tools. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I start walking up this thing, dude. I get 2/3 of the way up and they start shaking it on me. Oh yeah, for sure. Right. And dude, so I just busted A up to the top, right? I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and take this. Let's get this over with. So then I'm up on the roof and I'm like, we're laying fiberglass like all day. Just these big 8x4 sheets probably, or 9x4 or whatever.
Yep.
And when it came down for lunch, they were like, hey, you coming with us? I was like, just pick me up something. I go, if I come down off this roof, I'm never going back up. I promise you that. They're like, oh, come on. And I didn't. I sat there. I literally sat up there and waited for them to bring me like a sandwich back from Subway or whatever the heck. And that was day one. And I went down off the roof and I was like, I'm never going back up there again like that. And the second day, we actually went and did a residential roof in 1 day.
He didn't do many of those, did he?
No, because he donated it to one of his nieces or nephews. And the thing that was funny is I'm up there with Joe and Rich, right? I think it was me, Joe, Rich, and there was one other person. I think it might have been Ivan's, to be honest. I can't remember.
Sporticus.
Yeah, Sporticus. And that might be one of the best nicknames ever, dude.
Yeah, I think it is.
But dude, we're like doing this house and I'm just following their lead, right? We're just throwing stuff.
Yeah.
They're just stapling it down or nailing it down to the roof. They finish all the edges. I mean, they're hauling ass, right? And
Oh yeah, no.
we went so
It was
fast.
no joke. It was no joke. They had done it for years, and like you said, Larsons are some of the hardest workers I know.
Oh,
It's
for
like
sure. Well, we go driving away from the house, dude. We look behind us, right? And the roof is like dipped in the middle. The lines aren't straight. It's not terrible, right?
like, oh,
but it's
crap.
noticeable for sure. And I'm like, oh, dude, we gotta go fix that, dude. There's no way. Your dad would be mad at us. And like, I think it was Rich. And Joe trumpeted it or whatever they said. They go, oh, he's donating that to one of our cousins who gives a shit. We just keep driving away. And I'm like, okay.
Is this the one that lived on Redwood Road?
No, it was down like Tooele.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Back in the day, that would have been
Yeah, but I mean, it was like a normal size house back then. But dude, we knocked that thing out in like 6 hours. I mean, it was just, Tyvek or whatever's on the top when we got there. And it was fully
Just
shingled.
the tar paper up on the top, and then nice.
Yeah, just got it done.
And that was the last day you worked for him.
Yeah, then I went back to working for my dad, and then I never was against going and working for them. I mean, it was fun, right? You're with your boys, and Steve and BJ, and just everyone's messing around, and it was fun doing that. I mean, Brent came and saw us, and yeah, I mean, it was hard work, and it kind of just reminded me like you don't want to be doing labor your whole life, kind of thing.
No, for sure.
But then I went to work for my dad where we installed. I mean, I installed until I was 35. It's only been 5 or 6 years that I stopped installing.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
In fact, now you saying that, I'm surprised you occasionally don't go out and still.
I've been on job sites and been quickly reminded that this sucks. Like it's part of the reason why I'm so strong is because an 8x4 whiteboard weighs just shy of 200 pounds.
Oh yeah.
And there was entire schools I did myself. Yeah. I clipped the whole school. I walked by and I would just pick these boards up, like just by myself with music on.
Well, the funny thing is when you do that kind of stuff, you get functionally strong at certain things, and you can do stuff so ridiculously well that it's just not even a challenge.
Yeah, not at all.
Like I chuckle thinking back at when I was framing houses, right? Where you'd pick up a sheet, pick up a sheet or 2 sheets of OSB to carry them up a ladder. And literally you're walking up a ladder, holding on to a 4x8 sheet or 2 sheets of plywood and walking up the ladder, not holding on to it because you can't. So you're balancing it on your shoulder. You take it up there and then flip it up and throw it onto a roof.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's no way you took one piece.
No.
Because I look at dudes that take one piece.
No, you'll do that a couple of times and then they're like... Yeah. But see, I remember too, like when I very first started, like I remember I had just like, because you were swinging a hammer a ton. They weren't going to let the new guy use the nail gun. Right? They give you all the crappy tasks when you're the new kid. So it's like they just dropped off all the lumber and it's a giant pile and they're like, go organize that. Like, okay. Go and sort that out. Then after you're done, it's like, oh, go nail in all these bird blocks, and they'd hand you like a bag of nails and you'd go sit there literally with a hammer. And I remember I had like a massive blister on my hand from just hammering, enough so that I started holding the hammer between my fingers because I literally couldn't. My fingers, I was bleeding all over the place on my hand. So I was holding it between my fingers, like nailing all weird at the end of the day just to get through. But
can you imagine kids these days having a hand that was bleeding? You'd be taken to the freaking emergency room. Our society is so weak.
They'd make a workers' comp claim. It'd be
for
like,
sure.
I got injured on the job.
Oh, dude. I mean, dude, I don't think I've done an installation where I haven't cut myself.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't wear gloves, which is probably dumb.
Watching my, Nick, my brother, right? He worked for my mom installing all the time. He grew up for a long time in high school and later on installing. And there were times like cuts, because if you've ever dealt with a carpet knife, they are so scary sharp, and he had some like wicked cuts, like almost took his finger off multiple times. Yeah. And it was just like and they'd like literally like wrap it with duct tape and then finish the job, and then at some point maybe if need to be go and get it stitched up. Yeah. But like, and then today it's like, I have my job at Starbucks and my boss doesn't appreciate me and I have to work weekends.
We're unionizing.
We're unionizing as baristas. Yeah. Hey man, I deal with the union labor force, so it's all good. I get the union thing.
Oh, do you?
I'm not union, all right? I'm on the company side of it, but that's always fun.
Good luck. No, it's funny. I look at all the jobs we did as kids, and like all of our friends were the same. Yeah. I mean, we mixed a little bit of fast food in there. Some of them I never did, but But fast food back then was a hard job too. I mean, you're cooking,
Well,
you're
pizza.
doing all this kind of stuff.
That's all I did. I always had a rule. I didn't want to deal with frying stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know why.
Did we have a friend that worked at Taco Bell?
Marty worked at Del Taco.
Oh, did he?
Uh-huh.
He's not who I'm thinking
90% sure that. No. A bunch of us just always ate at Taco Bell all the time.
Yeah.
That's probably that'll be what kills me one day.
You have cancer. What is it from?
It's
Looks like
from
Taco
the Nachos Bell Grande. Yeah,
We've traced it back through
that
your
or
DNA.
it was from the pizza pipeline.
Oh, I love Pizza Pipeline, dude.
That's another thing I probably ate way too. Dude, how did we even move in high school?
75 cents a slice, man.
Dude, I was laughing about that because I was thinking of the crap that we ate in high school. Because I try and be good with my kids and make my kids eat good food. And sometimes you have this moment where you're like, what are you doing? Why are you eating that? And then you stop and think and you're like, yeah, do you remember half the crap you ate when you were a kid?
Yeah.
And I guarantee you my kids are going to listen to this. And then after they listen to it, they're going to be like, see, Dad, you... But do what
I say, not what I do. That's why I'm saying
exactly.
what I do. That's what I'm saying.
Learn better children.
Yeah.
Yes. So.
And get a manual labor job. Zach working at?
He's had a job. He worked food. He worked at Aubergine.
Oh, okay.
So he worked at Aubergine Kitchen for a little while. Took a little bit of an impact on his grades. So he was forced to quit his job.
Early retirement.
Yeah, he took early retirement. He's in the process of fixing his grades now, and he's pretty much where he needs to be now that he's going to be looking for another job. But it'll probably be food. People don't hire really below 16 very commonly, except for food.
Yeah.
He's got a buddy that's working up at Neaters right now, so he might end up there. I keep telling him there's a couple car shops down the street from us, and I keep telling him go down there, go be a shop assistant down there.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
It's kind of like
you're Jiffy Lube?
Huh?
Did you work at Jiffy Lube?
No, that was Brett Young.
I know Brett did. You never did that.
And didn't your brother did too? Didn't Brett McCormick do that too?
I think he did.
Nice.
I think he did. Did you drive your car in the pit?
No. I almost did. I truly almost did.
That's what I'm thinking
everyone will disagree with this, right? So,
Tell the story.
This is all I know. Listen, I'm sitting there and it's time to go and drive in. I'm getting my oil changed at Jiffy Lube. And as we're pulling in, you got the pit there, right? And there's someone that's guiding you. And so I'm pulling up to the pit in the Red Ranger, which we need to talk Ranger stories. I was thinking about that the other day, as they're guiding in, and they're totally pointing like this, right? Go this way. And I'm looking at it going, there's no way I need to go that way. And they're pointing hard. And I'm like, okay. So I turn that way. And next thing I know, I feel my tire go bonk, which I knew was the edge of the pit. And it's like, holy crap. And I'm pretty sure your brother was working there, wasn't he, at the time?
I feel like he told me the story, so he might have
I'm pretty sure he was working there. Yeah. And so also it was whoa, stop, right? Backed off. It didn't go in the pit. We just had to back it off. It was just up on the ledge. It was probably precipitously close to it, but no, it didn't go into the pit.
Because I think Vinny Gillespie worked in there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And that's why Brett worked there.
I remember that. And didn't Huggard work down there too? I'm pretty sure.
Might have.
Yeah. Because I remember you had Vinny's, Toyota truck there. And then I swear Huggard's Toyota truck there. And then I know for a fact that Brett Young worked down there.
That's funny. It's
Brett Young was the king of the Jiffy Lube.
Was he?
Oh yeah.
Dude, half that staff is freaking people we know.
Oh yeah. What could go wrong? Letting a bunch of 16 and 17-year-olds run your business. Would you do that?
Today?
Yeah.
Hell no, dude.
Here.
I wouldn't even trust them to install a whiteboard. Here's a customer-facing position, 16-year-old. Go deal with them. No, I was talking about this real recently because my dad, when I was 16, he's like, take the stop truck and go unload all these boards. Me and my brother Brett.
Oh, I remember you guys doing that.
All the time.
Yeah, that huge Mitsubishi box truck.
28-foot long box truck.
You guys would pack that sucker full and you guys would be like, and I remember calling you and it's like, hey, let's hang out. It's like, I got to go and unload 65 marker boards in wherever it was.
Yeah, who the hell knows? Some elementary school somewhere.
Somewhere really scenic, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Scipio.
Oh, dude, we drove up Parley's one time with a full truckload, 27 miles an hour the entire way up, dude. I was like, I think we're calling my dad, what the hell? And he's just like,
that's just what happens.
Yeah, get it done. Like, all right. I think my dad, his mentor style was go figure it out.
Brent was the same way, right? My stepdad was the exact same way.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out.
I actually think it might be the best way.
My kids get it, unfortunately. You know, a lot of times I try and be a little bit, you try and be a little bit better in that way. And I've got 2 good kids. I got 2 really good kids. In fact, even from the customer facing things, like watching Zach when we'd go in, because Rachel and I went in there a couple times when he was working. And I was impressed. I don't know that I would have done that well because he was 14 at the time he was working there. And it was like, 14, you're better off than I am.
I know my oldest daughter, she's 13 and she wants to work at Arctic Circle bad. And I'm like, as soon as you can, sign yourself up, baby. Yeah. Go get yourself some Arctic Circle. It's different eating it than working there, but whatever.
Ooh.
Get her a whole size. Just nothing about that cracks me up, man. Just sending her down there like on a scooter or something.
Yeah, no, that was Zach. We went and bought, because I didn't want him to take his nice mountain bike. Too many bikes get stolen these days. And so we bought him like a Huffy, basically. It was like a steel mountain bike.
Yeah.
In a bunch of days, he's like, hey, can you give me a ride to work? It's like, nope, ride.
Yeah.
So he had to ride the bike down the hill and then over the overpass and then down over to the other side of the freeway.
Yeah.
And, we'd go to work and then he sometimes had to, he'd call Rachel and be like, hey, can you come pick me up? And, sometimes we'd go pick him up and sometimes it's like, nope, ride back up.
Yeah.
Which was good for him anyways. I mean, we rode everywhere. We rode everywhere growing up.
Oh, yeah. Now, there's been a couple podcasts we've been reminiscing about riding bikes.
Yeah, you were talking to Adam about it, I remember.
Is that when I talked about going down to American Fork?
To Arby's, yeah.
Yeah, because Justin Erickson's mom, Justin and Ryan,
she was the manager.
She's the manager, dude. We would ride all the way down there on BMX bikes.
Oh, yeah.
What would you think that would take? 2 hours?
I don't know. I ride a bit, right, with my kid and stuff. So it's
but you're like riding to get fit. See, we rode to just like have fun. So we'd like ride over the cemetery and like drive through the cemetery.
Oh yeah,
and,
I remember riding down with Rich and Joe all the time, where you'd cut back behind like through Adventure Learning Park.
Yeah.
And then you'd go down and there was all these back roads to Art Dye Park and all these others that you'd go through. And then there were jumps. I remember watching Joe just eat it one time, trying to do this big gap between them. Yeah. Which as a kid, it's funny, as a kid, you get the wind knocked out of you and you're like, I'm fine. And as an adult, have you gotten the wind knocked out of you as an adult?
No.
You think you're going to die. It's not like you're not fine. It's like,
tell my kids I love them.
Have a good time. It's
I've had it knocked out of me as a kid for sure.
Oh yeah, no.
As
a kid,
adult.
it's just like, wait a second, it's coming.
Well, I remember
as an
eating
adult, you're just ready. You're ready to die. You're basically you're trying to think if you signed your will.
Well, and it was always like once a year, especially like in your elementary school years, you just rashed yourself with the asphalt,
Oh yeah.
On a bike. You just take off 2 layers of skin on your forearm, or your calf or something crazy.
Yep.
And it was just you come home, your parents would look at you, go get in the shower. There wasn't
they wouldn't even think about it.
No, not at all.
There wasn't it. My kid comes home with it. It's normally hey, go get the hydrogen peroxide and spray it all over that. My parents, it was like, hey, come eat dinner.
Yeah.
It wasn't even what happened. Good times to grow up.
Boys will be boys.
Good times to grow up.
It was analog.
It made good people. So
it was the analog years.
Yeah, for sure.
I think they're calling us the last great generation.
Well, it's interesting because we are right on that line, right? We're on the line. And I think it's interesting, especially at work, because you get and you understand the millennial stuff because you grew up with enough technology. Because I remember you had your cell phone that had the sparkly rainbow antenna.
Heart-shaped.
Heart-shaped, yes.
Yes.
So we grew up, right? We were dealing with that. We dealt with technology enough. Expo at 96 new technology. And so we were familiar with it. But at the same time, we get working. We understand how to work. Yeah. And so it's interesting because it's truly this line. And it's fun, at least in my role at work. I run a manufacturing facility and you've got this interesting transition that's happening these days where you got a lot of older guys that are working, but you're starting to get some younger people coming in, and it's fewer and fewer of the young people that come in that are really ready to do it. And so it's weird.
That tide's changing big time.
It really is.
Because it's, you know, all these kids, there's a dime a dozen, you know, programmers or whatever. You know, programmer can mean anything, you know. I work in cybersecurity, I do this, and other wages are getting slammed down because the pool's massive.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah.
Then you go to skilled labor, right? And it's just dwindling.
Yeah.
And people are like, I can't believe this costs this much. And
yeah,
it
was interesting because my work just had this announcement the other day that they're shutting down one of our facilities, this really big parent facility back in Madison, Wisconsin. And we're bringing most of it here to Salt Lake City. There's a bunch of like machining centers there. We're only bringing 2 of them to Salt Lake, but we're sending a bunch of them down to St. Louis, which I kind of like was like, whew, because I was worried I was going to have to go out and find machinists and go and try and find like a real legit machinist today. It's almost impossible. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, you're going like foreign, right? Like to Germany?
Well, no, like, I mean, you'll find them. But again, a lot of the dudes that I know that know how to machine, they're older.
Yeah.
Like probably the most respected machinist I know, Mike Nicolaisen, is this dude that, you know, he worked with me. And he's an old school machinist. Like he worked at International Harvester out in like Tennessee growing up. He has a really cool story. You should like totally have him on here. But he's a legit machinist. He knows how to do stuff by hand.
Yeah. And
you're just not seeing that as much anymore. You get a couple of kids here and there. So it's like truly, you know, they're going to have to figure out something. They're going to have to figure out something because, you know, I'm passionate about manufacturing. That's what I've done my whole career.
Yeah.
And it's sad because you see so much of that going away, like closing in the US, and everyone's like, oh, they're bad jobs anyway. We'll just send those overseas. And it's like, it's a horrible idea, guys. And you kind of saw what happened with it just barely with everything going on in this recession. Well, no one wants to call it a recession, right? But what's been going on over the last couple of years and even the post-COVID world, how everyone couldn't get anything, it's because it's all manufactured overseas and shipping was a complete disaster.
Yep.
So that's what happens when you send it all overseas and you lose the ability to make anything here.
Well, manufacturing's great jobs.
Yeah.
It really
is. And the thing is, the thing that I love, one of the things that I do love about my job, because, you know, there's a lot of guys that, you know, school's not a thing for them, and that's fine, right? Like that's totally fine.
It should be fine.
It is.
College is an absolute waste of money.
Yeah, it is. Like, and I feel bad. Like I've got a dude that reports to me at work, and he is a hard worker, and he's a great manager. Like all my supervisors, they're good managers, right? They don't have college educations, but Mike, one of these dudes, he's very good at managing people. He's ran his own business. And he'd love to move up, right? But if there was like a director level role, he'd probably have a hard time getting it just because he doesn't have a college education.
Oh.
I think did you talk about it on one of your prior episodes, or if it was someone else? Because a lot of times, really all it just proves you can stick with something, right?
Yeah.
You can stick with something when it sucks for 4 years.
Yeah. And
I feel like that's true still, but I do think that it's a pretty, like you said, in a lot of ways, it's a waste of money unless it's got something applied to it.
Unless you need a license, right?
Well, and what I've always pointed out to my kids is like, listen, if you're going to go to college, that's totally fine. It better be in something applicable. You better be doing an engineering degree. You better be doing something that actually makes a difference. Because if you go and do a humanities degree, or if you go and do an anthropology degree, sorry, Nick, it doesn't do a whole lot.
Communications.
I mean, yeah.
Business management's a joke.
Unfortunately, yeah, business management's a joke. So many of them are.
Yeah.
If you get something applicable, then at least it does give you something, because some of those things you need cred, right? Like,
well, and you're one of my friends that has a legit degree.
Yeah.
And yours is mechanical engineering, right?
Manufacturing engineering.
Oh, it's manufacturing.
Yeah, so it's more hands-on. But yeah, a lot of the similar aspects of mechanical.
Yeah. So how much has that helped you in your job?
A lot, actually. I mean, just going there. Again, the thing that I always tell people, I've lectured in a couple of classes before, and I always tell them, go out though and get a real job while you're going to school, because that actually makes it worth it. Yeah. That to me was valuable. If I would have just done school in a silo by itself without any kind of internship or without any like co-working experience, nah, not as much.
Yeah.
You need something that you can really see day in, day out. So it was interesting because I had been working. I got married really quick after I got home off my mission. So Rachel and I, we were going through school, and I always had to be working.
Yeah.
Rachel's got MS, and so we always had to make sure that we had insurance, and so it was always one of those things we had to keep insurance back, especially right in the pre-existing condition days when you had to have like linked insurance. If you ever had a gap, they'd call it pre-existing conditions. They wouldn't cover it.
Yeah.
So I was always working. And so I was like constantly working, going through school, and it was a valuable experience because I would see things. And so I'd be in classes and they'd be talking about level loading, or they'd be talking about Hijunka or something like that. And I'd be like, yeah, I know that. I've dealt with that at work. Or they'd talk about certain statistical things. They'd talk about CPK or, capability indexes or anything like that, or design of experiments. It's like, oh yeah, I know that. I've dealt with that at work. And so it really gave me a leg up. But again, it also then made it real. It made it understandable and approachable. And to me, that's the other thing, is it helps you understand. I wouldn't have understood those concepts in school, and I probably wouldn't have done as well in school if I didn't have the job and actually see the real. Yeah. So
in manufacturing, dude, it's fun.
It is.
It's actually a lot of fun.
It is.
Especially when we started getting to lean
you and I worked,
manufacturing.
right? You and I worked together when you were doing the little things that you were taking from Hunter Douglas. You bought that little Hoffman machine.
Yeah.
And I'm passionate about doing that sort of stuff. And I love looking at and going, there's a better way of doing this, right? There's a total better way. And I remember like when we had that machine and they were selling one, I called you, I think, and I was like, there is a better way of doing your display cases.
Yeah.
You totally need to get this machine. So it's fun, and it's good jobs, and it provides younger kids an opportunity to get their hands dirty and to find passion and to not have to go down something that they feel is scholarly. And the fact is if they can learn how to do a trade well, they can go out and make a wonderful job out of it.
Yeah.
If they go and learn how to weld, they can create a welding business one day, and then they can get people to weld for them, but then they can also build themselves up.
Yeah.
And then the other side of it too, that, is maybe a little bit more interesting, is it's fun too, because it also allows us, we hire people up at my work that have, and sometimes a criminal past. Mm-hmm. And it's a tough thing in our society today, because you can't get a job. Like, dude, if you have a felony on your record, normally you're blacklisted. You're not getting a job anywhere. Yeah. Like, you think you can go get an office job? No way.
Not a chance.
And so it's cool because, as long as, we obviously pay attention, we're trying to be as smart as we can about who we put on there. But we'll give people effectively a second chance. And then, they're super grateful to come out there. For a while, there was a parole officer in Salt Lake that if I could track him down, I'd take him to lunch and give him a hug and a kiss, because he kept sending all these people over to us. And it's like, yeah, we'll take them. Because especially right now, labor market's super tough. So manufacturing suffered a bit.
It has, and it's slammed the price up.
Yeah.
You only make so many apps.
Yep, you only make so many apps. You can only tear down so many factories and put up so many, commercial real estate buildings to stuff a bunch of overvalued startups in. I won't get too passionate about this.
I agree. Yeah. No, I agree 100%.
And the thing that makes me laugh on all the startups is, right, you look at the valuations on them and what they're doing, and it's like, yeah, okay, sure. It's not a bubble at all.
Oh, they're filling it now.
You look a little while ago, there was the company Away that made like bags and stuff like that, like luggage. And their valuation was like greater than the valuation of Samsonite. And it's like, they make like a tenth maybe of what Samsonite makes and sells a year. It's like,
yeah.
And, people try and then, Away's got so much more capability. It's like, no, they don't. They're never going to be that. And they're not a true tech company. And your valuation of that company is a manufacturing company, and you're treating it like a tech company. The valuation has nothing to do with it.
Well, that's what cracks me about the solar industry.
Yeah.
Solar they want to pretend that they can get, technology multiples in their business. And it's like, you guys are a subcontractor, man. At the end of the day, you take a panel, you stick it on a house, you hire an electrician to hook it up.
And
where's the magic? Where's the 20X?
No, there's good money in it. There's good money.
Not as a company.
Yeah.
The good money comes from, it's all pushed to the sales guys.
Oh yeah. Exactly.
And they've done that
going
to
out and
themselves.
getting it.
Yeah. Well, they've ran a little interference on all their competitors, right? So they'll go, hey, what's your pay scale? Oh, come over to here, bro. We'll give you 50 more bucks to sell. And then the whole freaking team goes over there. Then another guy's like, oh, we can do that. And they have take their margin, their cost on their sales guys and ate up all their profit margin. I think most solar companies, and I might be wrong, but I don't think I am. Most solar companies, I don't give a shit if they're doing $200 million a year, have single digits EBITDA.
You're probably right.
And
I haven't looked at the numbers.
But if you look at their sales guys.
My brother-in-law would know it well enough.
Oh, dude, the sales guys are taking home 25% of the margin.
Yeah.
It's bananas.
Oh, yeah. Because I know I had a discussion with my brother-in-law a while ago. Just in the process, I had a company reach out to me that was looking for a director of operations, a local solar place. And as I was talking to my brother-in-law that's done solar now for a number of years and has been pretty heavy into it, he kind of said the same thing. He's like, in those businesses, they tend to look at operations as almost like a necessary evil. He's like, the guys who make real money are the salespeople. Yeah. So it totally carried out with what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to be fair,
oh, go ahead.
And to be fair, like even with what he does now, he's focused a lot on the roofing side of things. So he runs a roofing company. He'll go and do the retrofits. And then if someone wants solar, he'll sell it. And then he'll sub it out to another solar provider to go and do the install. So he's kind of worked himself into a niche that way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, yeah, they're funny, man. See, and a lot of them, they want to switch their software up internally so they can call themselves a tech company. And I'm telling you, I feel like there's been some consulting.
We get these readouts that show what your panels are doing and things like that. And it's like,
yeah, even on their CRM side and their sales side, they're just like, yeah, we have proprietary software and this, makes us super efficient. And
yeah,
it's
because
like,
that does anything different than Salesforce. Okay,
yeah,
congrats.
Or Sales Rabbit.
Yeah,
Sales Rabbit is like the backbone for all of them. It's just like, why? And, in my world, right, in our world, we're probably the same. It's like, can we just go make some money? Why are we having these capital expenditures for software? There's 5,000 different softwares that we could use. And we're in these board meetings just like getting very excited for our proprietary software where, dude, nowadays proprietary means nothing. And they literally think it's like, yeah, if we have proprietary software, our valuation goes up 5 points. And it's like, no, it doesn't.
And it's interesting because I think tech totally is it's a catalyst to make a business better for sure. I think so much tech these days, they try and treat it like it's a magic bullet, like it's going to solve everything. And it's not, right? No. Right? It's never going to actually solve anything. But at the same time, it does enable a lot of progress. It makes companies be able to grow faster, to do things better. The company I'm at does not do IT well, so I don't have to deal with that problem or even that.
Now tell the listeners, what company are you at?
So I work for a company called Weir Minerals. They're up in the business I work for is up in Salt Lake. So Weir's a multinational. It's headquartered out of Glasgow, Scotland.
Okay, son.
Yeah,
I was waiting for the Scotland part.
So he's very happy about that. Yeah. But headquartered out of Glasgow, Scotland, which is funny because they have like one manufacturing facility left in the UK and that's it.
Really?
Yeah. But it's all around the globe. They got operations. I think last I had heard it was like 60 countries, and they got something like 12,000 employees. It's a big operation. So
it's fun when my neighborhood was getting new pumps for their pump houses, for irrigation.
Yep.
They kept on calling them the Weir pumps, and I was just like, yeah, dude, my boys' pumps are in the pump house.
Yeah, Weir, it's funny. Weir was originally really big into that. They've sold off so much of that. Like the business that I even worked at prior, because I've worked for 2 different Weir businesses in Salt Lake. One of them got sold off. So Weir Specialty Pumps that used to be in downtown Salt Lake, like downtown, they sold off a couple of years ago. They sold off that entire division, Weir did, to First Reserve Capital, and then they spun it as the Trillium Flow Control division or something like that. Oh. So they do that now. That's kind of all the municipal stuff. Weir's kind of shed a lot of things over the last couple of years. Even the original Weir Pumps business, they don't own it anymore. They sold it off.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. So the stuff that they do now is all like mining centric. They've really recast themselves as a mining business.
A mining company? Okay. Yeah. So why do you think they spun all that stuff off, in your opinion? Because it's interesting for people who are listening to this, right? Because they're like, why would you ever get rid of a business, right?
Yeah, no.
There's really good reasons to do that.
It just depends, right? Like there's a lot of times. So sometimes companies get distracted, right? Things become a distraction. And it can happen for a lot of reasons. In our case, what happened is we had a CEO who was trying to prove himself, right? So he wanted to get some renewable energy, green cred. So he went out and he went on kind of like a acquisition spree and bought up a couple of businesses. So he bought an interest in a company called American Hydro back in York, Pennsylvania. He bought a company called Infinity Electric Services, YES, out of Spain. YES did service on big wind turbines.
Yeah.
And so he bought up all these things, and then we looked at it like a little while later and realized they weren't making money. They weren't doing good. And that wasn't really the sector they wanted to be in. So they ended up selling off American Hydro to Wärtsilä. They sold YES back to the original guy. There's a lot of fun stories about that.
Yeah.
That wasn't a good acquisition. That was a horrible acquisition. So they sold it back to him. And then they ended up just, what happens is they get into something, they think that that's where it's going to lead and that's what they want to do. And a lot of times it's a CEO trying to prove himself, or it's them getting distracted from a core purpose.
Right.
And what Weir has decided now is they've looked at it and gone, no, mining is our core purpose. That's what we're going to do. Yeah. We're going to excel. We're going to excel in mining.
And that's coming down.
Smart.
And that's coming down from the board of directors level, right?
Oh, it's board of directors. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's board of directors. It's the CEO. It's everyone looking at things and saying, hey, this is what makes sense. And then they're also, right, board of directors is guiding it based off of what they're looking, and they're looking at it saying, hey, electrification, right? Electric cars, all the IoT stuff that happens these days, it's getting bigger and bigger. It's going to require more and more minerals. Minerals is going to be a solid business. There's going to be demand. You can only recycle so much, unfortunately, and we're not good at recycling. The planet sucks at recycling. So they're going to keep digging. They're going to keep digging, and because they're going to keep digging, we're going to make equipment that does it. But it's interesting too, because a lot of people, right, vilify that, and they're like, "Oh, mining, it's a dirty industry." It was interesting. A couple of years back, I was in the Netherlands, and I was at a leadership thing for Weir, and we ended up doing this dinner with an international school out in the Netherlands, out kind of by Venlo in the Netherlands, and one of the girls there, they gave us an opportunity to just take questions, and they had this question where they said, hey, do you feel good about what your company does in terms of, child mining and slavery and things like that? Is Weir feel good about that? And one guy eventually answered, and what he said is, he said, well, you can't take it as a black and white question. There's things that are good and there's things that are bad in the world. And we have some technology that allows us to reduce energy consumption in grinding rock, which grinding rock takes 6% of all the energy consumed in the entire world.
Wow.
And he said, we have a technology that will reduce energy consumed in grinding by 1/3. So if everyone adopted it, you could reduce global energy consumption by 2%. It's like, so you tell me, is that good or is that bad? Right? So it's interesting, right? A lot of people today want to see the world in black and white, right? Cancel culture. It's like, oh, that's wrong. But that's not how the world works. Yeah. The world doesn't work in black and white, really, when it comes down to it. There's a lot of grays, and you got to take into account a lot of things, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Do you guys, do you do stuff for lithium mines?
There's a lithium mine that's actually getting started up out in Nevada right now. It's a pilot site, and we've done a bunch of work, helping them work out the refining process. So we're doing a lot of work on that pilot site out in Nevada right now.
Nice. And then, so for working for Weir, how did you get that job, and what do you do? What's your days look like? So working for Weir, I got my job, right? I ended up where I am, largely LinkedIn. I was working, I always talk to people and tell people it's about connections, right? Knowing people helps out so much. So when I actually got internships in college and started doing that, it's because I knew people. I talked to people, I met people, and got opportunities. And then I had a really great opportunity. I worked down at US Synthetic because of someone I knew, was down there for a number of years, learned a lot of great things, finished up school.
And then headhunters reached out, I moved to somewhere else. And then headhunters reached out, I moved to Weir. I was at Weir Specialty Pumps for about 5 years. Got a little dissuaded with where the business was going, wasn't happy with it. And actually, if anything, probably saw some of the writing on the wall that entire division was going to be sold off. And so got out and went and worked with a friend, because I knew someone. Went and worked with a friend for a little while. And then after I worked with him for a while, I reached out to my old boss and just was keeping in touch with him. And he said, hey, there's a really good opportunity here in Salt Lake at Weir Minerals. Would you be interested? And I said, I'm always interested. I'll always hear people out when it comes down to it. Yeah, let me know what it is. So we talked about it and it worked out good. And I ended up there. When I went there, though, they told me, they're like, this is an interim job. Like, this is no guarantee of employment long term.
Yeah.
And I took the job, and they're like, but if you do a good job, there's a chance we'll hire you. And I'm like, I'm not worried about that. You'll be happy. I'm not worried about that. So I took the job and jumped in and started doing what I did. And that was all supply chain stuff at that point. And yeah, pretty quickly after that, they're like, yeah, we want you to stick around. We're going to keep you in this role. And so the dude that was the interim that was coming back, they put him into a different part of the business, and then eventually they let him go. But I ended up sticking around where I was at. And again, like all it is, it's because of connections, and it's because when you do something, you do a good job, right? And then the other side of it too is when I left, I've never burned a bridge in terms of things with employment. It's really easy to get dissuaded and get pissed off at people and think that they did you wrong or something that way. And in these days, right, it becomes so famous to, I'm going to, show my boss and tell him, what a dick he is or whatever it is. Yeah. But it's not necessary, right? It's not necessary to burn the bridge. And so because I was classy in how I dealt with those things, I got a call from him and he's like, hey, yeah, I think you do great in this. So opportunity came, and then I was working that for a little while, and then they said, hey, you've done a great job there. We think that you have an opportunity to take over for our director of operations. And the director of operations had been around with the company for over 40 years, not in his role, but in multiple roles. And so they're like, we'd like you to take over and do that. So they threw me into the director of operations, and then I also kept all the supply chain stuff. So been running that now for just over, I think, 2.5 years. Yeah.
And you travel quite a bit, right?
I did a lot with supply chain. Like when I was doing supply chain, I traveled a lot more. I don't travel quite as much now. I think last year I only traveled 3 or 4 times. I guess if you count Elko traveling, that's not really traveling. That's just misery. But I went to a Weir plant up in Canada, up by Vancouver. I went to a Weir plant down in Brazil, just outside Sao Paulo. And then I was at another Weir plant down in Santiago, Chile. So, but that's really all I did last year.
Yeah.
I'll end up, because of this whole change where they're shutting down this facility in Wisconsin, I'll probably be in Wisconsin a fair amount this year. But
sweet. And you've been back to Scotland a few times?
I never have been to Glasgow. I've never been to headquarters. That's to everything I've done. No.
Why were you in Edinburgh then? I
was in Edinburgh because they did, at that point I was also doing health and safety. This is another thing, right? That if I always tell people from my career, things come up and people will throw things in your lap, and it's kind of like you said, just figure it out. I got recruited when I worked for Specialty Pumps, and literally 2 months after I started, my boss came to me and was like, hey, we're going to fire our health and safety guy. He's only spending 25% of his time here. You're an engineer. You can figure this out. So can you take care of that? And it's like, okay, you guys are laying off people, and I have a family to take care of, pretty young family at this point. It's like, yeah, I'll do that. So I took health and safety, which I knew nothing about, right? Well, go to work, figure it out. So pushed through, figured it out, and that kind of went through. So anyhow, doing health and safety, Weir's really, really big on the health and safety bit. So they wanted us at that point, all the people that were doing health and safety, to be certified, but certified to the UK standard, which is called NEBOSH, the National Educational Board of Occupational Safety and Health. Yeah. So they want everyone to be certified. So they had us go out and do the certification course, which was 2 different weeks. And they taught it up at the University of Stirling.
Okay.
So I flew into Edinburgh, and then I went up to Stirling and then spent the week up in Stirling at the college up there.
Well, you were close to Glasgow.
Oh yeah, I was super close to Glasgow. So I was right there, spent a week up, went and saw the William Wallace Monument, did all that stuff.
Did you walk to the top?
Oh yeah. Dude, that sword's so huge. Yeah. People don't realize, like, those guys were tough.
Dude, we always joked in our, it's probably 5'1".
Oh, dude.
You know what I mean? His sword is way taller than him.
Oh, it was huge. It was huge.
Yeah.
And it's like, and he actually like killed people with that. I don't know how I would tip over. I'd like go to pick it up and okay, screw that.
Yeah, there's that big statue out in the front. I always joke with people. I'm like, it looks a little more Mel Gibson than I wanted to, And everyone just kind of laughed, and all the missionaries take pictures with it. But
yeah, that's not quite the Braveheart story, but okay. William Wallace story
is not.
Braveheart story and William Wallace are 2 very different things. But.
Yeah, and people in Scotland will let you know. They're like, Robert the Bruce and him never even, it's like, do you like the movie though, right? And they're like, okay. I'm like, yeah, okay, I like the movie, yeah. Like,
but yeah, so, and then I had some suppliers down in the UK, down in England. So I dealt with them too, down towards Manchester. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So some funny stuff about us growing up. You made a list of stories. What's your highlight?
Oh, geez. We need to talk a little bit about you and your purple Ford Ranger.
Oh, let's talk about purple. Yeah, let's talk about Ford Rangers, even though you wrecked yours.
Oh, that hurts. That hurts.
Well, tell people how you wrecked it though. It's the best story ever.
It's not. No, it's a boring story. I was driving to work. I was driving to Supersonic Car Wash.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking. Oh, no. I revived it after that one. You're talking about the puddle. You're talking about hydrolocking.
Driving over the freeway.
Yeah. The freeway. Well, that was boring.
I thought you were like looking at a Lamborghini or something.
No, it was traffic. Traffic was backed up on my way to Supersonic, and so I was like looking at the traffic, and I was like, oh, it stopped. And then I rear-ended that lady who had just gotten her car fixed. And then like I was bleeding out of my mouth. I didn't realize, but I had like bit through my lip completely. And so like I get out and I run up. I'm like, are you okay? And she started screaming at me. She was mad because she had just literally gotten her car out of the shop like that day before.
Yeah.
And then like I walk back to my car. And as I walk back to my car, the nice people that were behind me walk up. They're like, you're bleeding. And I like go and look in my rearview mirror or side view mirror, and I got blood like streaming down my chin because I had bit through my lip.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the fun one. The fun wrecking of the truck, which it revived like a phoenix from, was with lots of money and help from mom and dad probably. But no, I was going up Hogs Hollow because before they built houses all up Hogs Hollow and kind of ruined Hogs Hollow.
Didn't kind of ruined Hogs Hollow.
Well, you can still bike up there. At least they got that going for it. But, with how everything else is going these days, it's just a matter of time before they sell that off, too. It's now development's lame these days, but oh well, people got to make a buck. So I was driving up there, and there used to be a giant puddle that would form like part of the way up there. And so we were like off-roading up there. We drive up there all the time. And I went to go through that puddle, and it was kind of deep, and I went through really fast. And on the old Ford Rangers, the air intake was right in the front grill. And so literally the water went up the front and just right into the intake, seized up the engine, which I actually still to this day. And if you go in my office at work at Weir, I've got the piston and the connecting rod from that engine sitting on my.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right next to my desk.
Did you rebuild it?
Yeah, we rebuilt it, got it running again, did a little bit of body work on it, tried to recover from all the beating that Nick had submitted that poor truck to. But the one that I always love was you driving your Purple Ranger. One of the great stories was you launching your Purple Ranger off the side of the road in that rainstorm. Because for all your listeners, all 5 of your listeners, right? And so if I take myself out, that's 4 listeners. Mark and I used to race everywhere we went. And Rachel laughs because like when we were first dating, I'd always be like, this guy is trying to race me. And she brought this up even the other day. It's like, I still maintain at least, probably 30% of those were probably true, that they really were trying to race. Yeah. But we would race everywhere, like everywhere.
Everywhere.
Like, oh, we're going to the Olive Garden on a dance? Oh, you better believe it was on like Donkey Kong, dude.
Who won that race?
Shut up.
Illegal things were done to win that race.
Unfortunately, it always involved probably illegal things. Driving over medians.
Oh, yeah.
Illegal U-turns.
Running red lights.
Like
stopping and then going through red lights.
It's so amazing we're alive and that we actually kept our licenses through high school.
Did we even get close to losing them?
No. But I got out of a lot of tickets, unfortunately.
Yeah, I paid a lot.
Zach, be smart. So anyhow, like I remember that time we were like racing up to your house. So we were down by like American Fork High School and I'm in my Ranger and I know Ivans was there. I think it was Ivans and Joe. I think Joe was with me and Ivans was with you.
No, Rich was with me.
Rich was with you? Okay, so it was Rich with you and then Ivans was with me.
Yeah.
So we're hauling along that road that goes there by Fox Hollow, Tri-City Golf Course, right? And as we're going there, there's that bend where there's the Welcome to Highland sign there. And you were flying.
Which is like 18-inch thick concrete.
Yeah. And it's like, I think it was like a 25 mile an hour road. And you had to be doing like 90 miles an hour, I swear to it, on that road.
We were doing 90 miles an hour.
And I'm right behind you trying to keep up with you. And as we're like, I know that the road is going to bend soon. And so I think you passed me.
Yeah.
And I started backing off because I knew the turn was coming.
Well, it was super rainy.
And it was raining.
It was raining
dumping
hard.
rain.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, I'm like, dude, the turn's here. And next thing I know, I see just taillights as you launch your truck. I don't know how high off the ground you were. You had to have been like 6 feet off the ground at least. Because you full on Dukes a hazarded it off the side of the road. And then launched and then landed like not that far from the sign and then like cranked the wheel and fishtailed and almost hit the sign. And then came up the side of the embankment there because there was no sidewalk or anything in old school Highland. And then launched up the side, all four off, and then landed. And
on the freaking Alpine Highway, yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I literally Jeff and I came to a dead stop and watched the whole thing. And then you were like sitting there up at the top and we were just still sitting there watching. And it was like,
dude. So from my perspective, right, what I can remember, I do remember like kind of going around you. And like, oh yeah, we got him. And me and Rich are like, where's the turn at? Like we were literally saying it out loud. But I mean, we had the music at a freaking 10 too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Music was blaring like crazy. And then all of a sudden, dude, yeah, I am like, like I couldn't even say a word and the freaking road bends. And I'm like, and we like go off. I must have hit the brakes or tried to, but it didn't do a thing.
Oh, I saw the lights. The brake lights came on.
So if I hit the brake lights, it didn't slow us down at all. And I just remember thinking, and it was weird because the music turned off. And we got so hyper focused that we literally just everything like disappeared in the world, right?
Oh yeah.
And I remember thinking the windshield wipers are going like crazy, and I'm like, where is that sign? Right? Because I'm like, if I hit this thing, we're freaking dead or like severely hurt.
Yeah, it was not gonna go well.
And yeah, dude, it like kind of shows up in slow motion. Yeah, I remember like turning, dude, and like fishtailing, being like, and like I remember when we hit that embankment to go up, Rich and I looked at each other. And just like turned back and we slammed down on the road and started flying down again a little bit. Cause we were probably doing maybe 40 by the time I hit the road, which is insane. And all of a sudden the music turns back on and we're like, whoa. And we just like did we just like pull over the side of the road and you guys came up behind us?
Yeah. Cause I was like, sure something broke.
Oh,
I thought for sure. Yeah. Like I was waiting for the wrath of Ray and Diana.
Never. Dude, I remember being in shock for like probably 5 minutes, dude. I was like, okay, that was dumb. Like that was really dumb. You know, like we could have been really hurt.
I'm pretty sure the first thing you said after we got out of the car, like when I pulled up next to you, was I won. That was the first thing you said. I won. It's like,
you got to keep the humor in there.
Well, of course. I would expect nothing less from you, dude.
Oh man. That was wild.
There was that. I also remember in the Ranger driving down to St. George for spring break.
I just talked about this. It was in Vegas yesterday.
Did you talk? Oh, you talked to the guys when you're driving back?
I was joking around. No, when we were driving down, I was joking around like, dude, one time in high school.
One time when I was an idiot, me and 3 of my friends, so it was 4 of us, right? It was me, you, Ivans, and Rich. Mm-hmm. And we decided to go down for spring break to St. George.
And it's because Joe had a girlfriend, so he couldn't come hang out with us and have fun with his friends in high school.
Lame.
Did not end up marrying that girl. Interesting.
Seems like a recurring thing. Yeah. So we decided to go down there to stay at the Larsons, right? Like, again, it's always a Larson. It always comes back to the Larsons. I love Larsons.
It's like a universal truth.
They're so awesome. But yeah, we were staying down in their condo. So we drove down. And I don't know why we thought it was a good idea, but we're like, we're going to take Daniel's Ranger down, right? Single cab, Ford Ranger.
We wanted a tan in the back.
You guys were thinking you were going to tan.
Yeah.
And we were driving from here to St. George with 2 kids in the bed of a truck. Like, think about that. Like, if your kids said they were going to do this, what would you do? You'd be like, no. Right? But we totally did it. We drove all the way. Like, these days, like, I feel like if you have a kid in the back of your truck anywhere, like during COVID, I used to drive with Zach and Maddie. They wanted to like go on drives because everyone was crazy and sitting in their house.
Yeah.
So they'd hop in the back of the truck and we go drive around like the neighborhood. And a couple of times we like drove to Highland, but I kept waiting, like going on the highway for 2 seconds with the kids in the back of the truck. I was waiting for someone to call the cops on me. Right.
Yeah.
We drove to St. George.
Yeah.
With people in the back of the truck.
No one cared.
No one cared.
I'll tell you though, when we hit that freeway and that Arctic air hit our freaking nude bodies, basically, we had gym shorts. We had like rolled up to like Speedos, right? Dude, it was like nipple shattering cold.
Oh,
bro.
it was so
We're
bad.
like, pull over.
And I remember because it was like, we didn't go that far when you guys realized the error of your ways. And then it became like a rotation out of the truck. And then there was a rotation as well because you slid open the back window, the sliding glass, and you'd hang in there for a little bit to get warm. And then I think at some point we started 3-packing the cab. And then whoever was in the bed of the truck had the sliding open and would sit right there to try and stay warm.
Determined young men.
Oh, yeah. We had to get down to St. George and see Matrix.
Oh, that was the weekend we saw Matrix.
It was the weekend. Yeah, I think it was the opening weekend for the Matrix, and we went and saw it.
Well, it was. The people knew about the Matrix. They didn't like really do a trailer for it. Just said,
you didn't. I remember.
Yeah.
Because I remember I knew what we were going to go see. And you're like, what the heck
had no idea.
Yeah, what is the Matrix? And I was like, it's this movie. It's going to be awesome. I promise. Because I think I was the only one that knew about it. And you guys like went with.
Didn't we watch it twice in a row?
I think we did. We went and watched it. Did we stay?
We just stayed.
I think we stayed in the movie theater and we just watched it.
Back in the day, you just pay $5 or whatever, and you just
and they never cleared things out. Yeah. So we just literally stayed. It was like, we got to see that again.
Waited like 45 minutes and the next show.
And then started over again, and we went. And then that was an awesome trip. That was super fun. It's still one of my favorite pictures ever is from that trip, and it's like Rich so it's like out in front of Rich's condo. Yeah. And you got Rich on the side, and I think we all have Dr. Peppers. So it's Rich there, and then I think Ivans is sitting in the bed of the truck, and then you're next to Rich, and then I think I am taking it and holding like it out because you can't take selfies of yourself with a 35 millimeter film camera, kids, just in case you're wondering. So I took a picture of that, and then I had to wait to actually see what the picture looked like.
That's back when those pictures mattered. Oh, I'm still kind of that way. It drives me nuts if someone takes a picture with my phone. It takes like 15. I'm like, just take one.
Well, and do you remember like the utter disappointment of getting a roll of film back from Albertsons and American Fork for film developing, and it was like half of them were bad?
Oh yeah. Or
someone stole your camera and like took a picture of their junk, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, that happened a lot. Depending on where that camera was, you couldn't have your mom go pick your photos up.
It was like the equivalent for a long time of like leaving your like screen unlocked. Like if one of the places I worked, if you left your screen unlocked, you'd come back and there would be David Hasselhoff in a Speedo on your screen.
Oh, your desktop,
you'd get hoffed every time.
Yeah.
But so it was the same thing like with us growing up. If you left your camera out, it got subjected to all sorts of things.
Oh, I love it, dude.
I remember Travis Weber one time, like, I think we were at Winston Graham's house or something like that. Winston Grant, not Graham.
Grant. Yeah.
Grant, right? Yeah. And like we were hanging out at her house for something, and like we're checking out the house, and like he went in her room and found a camera and proceeded to like take pictures. Like I think he was like taking her figurines on the shelf and like taking random pictures of it. Yeah. Stupid things you do to people.
You say 35 millimeter, and I'm telling you, dude, there's some people that have no idea what the hell you're even talking about.
What's the ISO speed on that film? This is ISO 800. I can take pictures in the dark. Kids, you have no idea.
No idea. You'd always get doubles. So you can give one to your friend.
Like I said, but you didn't know. You didn't know what you'd get, and you didn't want to wait for reprints. Yeah. So you'd get doubles. And then, like I said, then you'd find out that half of your roll was taking pictures of someone's butt and like a wall and all these other things. And it's like, I just paid how much money? Like I just paid $10 for a roll of film, and I got 3 pictures that were good out of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Rich, you suck. Don't touch my camera.
Oh my gosh. Well, dude, we're at an hour and a half.
Holy crap.
That's how fast this goes by.
And whoever's listening to this, I'm sorry. They're like, at least like, you know, when Brea and Nixon, you know, and Harper are listening to this one day, they're going to be like, oh, at least I know more about my dad.
Oh yeah.
Anyone else got like basically no enlightenment out of this.
What are you talking about? You're talking about your business, dude. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, here's what you got to do. You know the drill. You got to enlighten us at the end with your best advice.
My best advice? Well, first of all, I got to say why I love Mark McCormick, right? I got to repeat the Jared Heaton why I love Mark McCormick. Brea, Nixon, right? Harper, Michelle, you already know these things. I love Mark because Mark is one of the most genuine people I know. Mark and I were chatting last night as I was driving home from work. And the thing with Mark is like one of the few constants I've had in my life. Like, and the beauty of Mark is, I said this last night, right? Mark and I could go a year without talking to each other, which we wouldn't. But if we did, we would talk to each other again, and it would be like it never skipped a beat. And that's how it is. That in today's world, and this is one thing you got to learn, and this probably goes into the advice thing as well. Good friends are very hard to come by, and genuine good friends are even harder to come by. And a genuine good friend sticks through you through thick and thin. They're there. I've always told Rachel, right? Like quasi joking, but also serious, right? If I ever was in a bad situation, especially, right? If I was ever like in jail and had to get bailed out, Mark McCormick would be the man I'd call, right? Like that's, and it's funny because, you know, you and I aren't hanging out all the time. We stay in touch, right? We go grab lunch. You've definitely had your group of friends that you've probably been closer in terms of hanging out with and stuff like that. And you and I haven't stayed that way, but you and I are always in touch.
Yeah. And
I've always known that I can reach out to you, and if I needed something, you'd be there no matter what it was.
100%.
And I've always appreciated that. And I've hoped always that you've known the same thing, right? No matter what it was. The thing that's tough with you is you've got such an amazing network of friends that I feel like you've always got a massive support system. And so I hope you understand like how important that is to me. And that's one of the reasons I love you as a friend, is because truly, like, it's a pretty short list. I joke around with Rachel a lot. I've got a lot of associations. I don't have a lot of friends, like people that I say, yeah, absolutely, right? Ride or die, 100% friends. And Mark's on that list. He's at the top of that list. So,
thank you, my friend. It's always good when I bring on guests to stroke my ego. But no, I mean, the fun thing, who knows when we locked that friendship in, man? Might have been the first day we met, you know?
I mean, honestly, I sit there and think, right? Like, because after Mandy, we spent so many times, whether it was playing guitar in the front room of your house or on drives to Hearts to go get drinks, you know, or driving up the canyon, AF Canyon, or going to concerts, listening to Stabbing Westward.
Oh, yeah.
I have to make sure that name comes up in here because that would just be
a tragedy.
Yeah, that would be very sad. But like we've got so many things, and honestly, it just became solidified by, you know, us. I think both of us we bounced around a lot, but we always had constant friendship that we came back to. We always had friendship we came back to. And, if I give people advice, it's find good friends and keep good friends in your life. And when people have value in your life in terms of you appreciate them, let them know. These days, people are way too hesitant to say, hey, dude, I love you. Right. And it always becomes, you have to attach something on the end. I love you, bro, or dude, or whatever. And so you have to try and make yourself feel good about it, but let people, you appreciate them. I do need to start the whole letter thing again, and hopefully people don't die. I'll try not to write you a letter for
Well, no, you wrote me a letter recently.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
No, it meant a ton to me, dude. It's in my nightstand with a couple pictures of my kids, and it's where my important stuff goes.
Yeah.
And it was super heartfelt, and it hit right probably when I needed it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things. And the other side of things that I also say, that if I were to give advice, don't be so hard on yourself, right? This world has got so many things going on, and sometimes there's so much pressure for us to be, amazing people. And we all have our flaws, right? We all have stuff that we don't do well, and we're not well put together. And we live in a world where everyone tries to put on this air that they've got it together, and they don't. None of us do. We all have crap, right? We all have crap that we sit in our cars as we're driving somewhere thinking, whether it's, I could have done that better, or I need to be a better dad. I need to be a better husband. I need to be, a better employee, a better business owner, a better manager, a better son, a better friend. There's so much stuff like that. And it's easy to get hard on yourself. But I think the thing that I always have lived, and this goes back to manufacturing as well, you live the concept of Kaizen, which is a Japanese thing, right? Is continuous improvement. As long as you're trying to be a little bit better each day, right? You make mistakes. But if you can just be better and try and be a better person every day and find little things you can do, you don't have to do everything. A lot of times we focus on, tomorrow you need to start working out 50 minutes, every, half an hour, ridiculous things, that's you're not going to make that change. Change one little thing, become a little bit better. There's an awesome book called One Small Step Can Change Your Life by Robert Maurer. And it's that whole idea of just living in Kaizen, living and making one thing better. And if you want to change something and you want to change your life, it happens one small step at a time. You do that, you focus on that, and don't worry about it, right? Don't worry about what everyone else thinks, right? Know who your good friends are. They're the ones that are going to see you. They're going to help you see the real you and the good in you when you miss it. And then all you can focus from there is fixing yourself one bit at a time, and knowing that you'll keep living that way, and one day you're dying, and you've taken every step you can along the way to try and get a little bit better, man.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Hey, my bud, thank you very much for coming on.
Hey, brother. Love you, man.
Love you too. And the support you're giving me, listening to the podcast, coming on the podcast, it means the world. And so, and we're, this is not the last time we're going to do this. So sure. I'd love to get a bunch of dudes together and just kind of rip through some of the funny shit we did.
Oh, you could have fun. Yeah. Cause I even think about the last time that me, you, Joe, Rich sat there and hung out down at their place in American Fork.
Yeah.
If you could set up something like that, that'd be hilarious.
Oh, we will. I'll make that happen.
Yeah.
Make it happen. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast, dude. Get this thing released in the next month, hopefully.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the President McCormack Podcast, brought to you by McCormack Foundation, Saxton Fund, ADP Lemco, and Professional Floor Systems. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and keep up with Mark on Instagram @President McCormack.